Dear colleagues and friends, we are here in Council of Europe, Strasbourg. Behind us we have mild European atmosphere in this house of Council of Europe, and you are guest of Parliamentary Assembly. We are coming here for the sad occasion, for the memory of Boris Nemtsov. 1 year he was killed 1 year ago in Moscow, next to Kremlin. We cannot keep minutes of silence in TV studio, but we can have some questions. And first question will be, of course, to dear daughter of Boris Nemtsov, to Zhanna Nemtsova, about your father who dedicated life for democracy, and what happened during this year, and how looks investigation to Boris Nemtsov's death in Moscow. How you are satisfied with those investigative moves inside of the system of law and justice, let's say, of Russia.
Mr. Zingeris, thank you very much for your invitation and for this opportunity to speak in the Council of Europe. First of all, this year was the most difficult year, the most tragic year for me, for my family, for all people who worked with my father and who now stand next to me on both sides. Concerning the investigation, it wasn't a surprise for me, and from the very first days of the investigation, unfortunately, I wasn't sure it would be thorough and objective. And now I have to admit with sadness, as my lawyers have to admit, and as my father's friends and his colleagues and politicians, the investigation is effectively in a deadlock, and we understand why we do not have this thorough and objective investigation because of the lack of political will. And in order to elaborate on that, I would say that even the names of the organizers and those who sponsored the crime haven't yet been recognized. So the investigative committee hasn't yet named these people, and of course I filed a lot of applications trying to convince the investigative committee to question, for example, Kadyrov, the ruler of Chechnya, and a lot of other people close to Kadyrov, but they refuse to do so. So they do not have the desire for this investigation. That's why I find it important to push it forward even in such circumstances, and to call for international control, and to have this independent international assessment of this investigation. And I'm pretty sure, though it might sound a bit optimistic, that there are some people in the ruling elite who might be interested in more comprehensive investigation process, and this push, this international push, can be the driving force for the investigation. And I would say that I find this process for me is a life process, and that's how I pay moral tribute to my father, and I think that in 5 or 10 years we will know who ordered this crime and who organized this crime, and all these people will be punished.
So, Zhanna, we're coming to the moment when your juridical procedures, or from your point of view, are not satisfactory, and you should be started outside Russia. So
no, I wouldn't say this thing. International investigation can be only conducted effectively in Russia.
Right.
But what we can do is international control over the investigation, independent and unbiased assessment of this investigation. That is very important, because of course everybody understands that it's not an objective investigation, very limited and things like that. But when you have an international mechanism of control, when it is recognized on the international level, that might be a driving force to push it forward, to you know, even in a country like Russia, they have to respond to these things. That's how we try to put pressure on the investigation process. Because international investigation is impossible, only control. There is one vehicle in the United Nations under the umbrella of the Security Council. And it happened 2 times in the history where there was launched an international investigation into the murder of Rafik Hariri and Benazir Bhutto. But it was all carried out because of the desire of the state. Of course, Russia would never opt for this.
Okay, so in this case, not looking at the fact that investigation is, like you said, are under artificial pressure, investigation about your father's death, we still need international community, and we should find the way and possible parliamentary assembly and the committees in parliamentary assembly still have the possible channels to start the parallel overview, trying to make a summary what happened with investigation in Russia. So
yes,
in this
and
case,
it is important to do it in the Council of Europe because Russia is the member of the Council of Europe, and that is very, very important, I find.
So if possible, we need to use our usual tool. It's rapporteurship like that, and should go ahead and have all facts here in Council of Europe Parliamentary Assembly. Can I turn now to Prime Minister Mikhail Kasyanov with one question? You become after Boris Nemtsov, you are now keeping the colors of democracy. You were always one of the leaders, but now you are number one. How safe you feel?
The only one.
Yes, yes.
Before we were 2 of us. Now just unfortunately that happened.
In your party, in Parnas, and generally speaking, how you feel like a Russian Democrat after 1 year when somebody should ensure your existence, your working environment in Moscow, that you will be sure and you will be in Moscow democratic environment will be ensured that such cases like Nemtsov case, and before just we have declared by British government Litvinenko case, and before we have next to us Vladimir Kara-Murza who just was poisoned, how such cases will be not in case anymore in Moscow after Kadyrov a few days ago just announced that Russian Democrats should be punished, and he received no one sentence from current Russian government about his behaviors. Prime Minister, is word.
First, let me finish the motion with respect to Parliamentary Assembly support and control of investigation. As it was said, just Russia is a full-fledged member of Council of Europe, of Parliamentary Assembly. That happened so that the Russian Federation has an obligation vis-a-vis the whole members, the whole family, European family. But current government in Russia just violate those obligations. And that's why the Parliamentary Assembly should step in, should not allow one member country to violate all rules and laws of Council of Europe. It means we should go further on with existing procedures and to impose some kind of control and require from Russian authorities to implement what is necessary. If authorities do not implement necessary steps, as Zhanna have just described, and lawyers of the family just keeping everything under their control, and nothing special what could be satisfactory happens. That's why we call the Assembly, we call you and other friends of Russia, for democratic Russia, to stand up now and to support the motion and to appoint a rapporteur and to start controlling, to making a report, to start controlling what's going on in Russia. Now, answering your second question, what we do and how we feel. We feel, I wouldn't say nervous, but we feel that Russia is going to the deadlock. None of the features of democratic state exist in Russia right now. Talking about human rights and political freedoms, we have none of them.
Even physical safety.
Even physical safety, you're right. And those dangers which appear from time to time from different high-level officials, I will put this way, appear to be without any answer of federal authorities. So that to keep people calm and to keep people just with the feeling of safety. There is no personal security, civil security in Russia right now, and everyone feels that way. That's why a part of the control of Boris Nemtsov murder investigation, we need to have a thorough monitoring of everything what's going on in Russia, especially this year. This year, in accordance with the constitution, we should have parliamentary elections. That's the major institute of democratic state. If Russia failed to implement this, it means Russia could be considered to be as lost by the Council of Europe. We don't want to happen this. That's why even now, just other direction should be, I would say, encouraged and to be implemented more effectively, controlling just preparation of free and fair elections. While we should have, as a completely separate thing, just control and report of investigation of murder of Boris Nemtsov.
Okay, I think during this week, Parliamentary Assembly will react to your words, to the stand of Zhanna Nemtsova.
Mr. Andrius, can I interrupt you just to add some words to what Mikhail Kasyanov has just said? And I fully agree that it is important to have this international control in order to stop further violence and cruelty against the opposition leaders in Russia, and also all other people who openly express their views and their political preferences which are contrary to the official point of view, to the official line. And that's why in the wake of this new wave of intimidation on the part of Mr. Kadyrov, we have to stop this violence. And this international control is a very effective tool also to ensure that the leaders of the opposition are safe physically.
Right, not only leaders of opposition, but also civil society activists.
Yes, you're right.
Just human rights people, just under permanent pressure.
You're talking about freedom of speech in general.
Absolutely.
So, Mr. Kadyrov is a strange figure who looks is unstoppable, and he have nobody is telling from the government side that he should stop to press and to blackmail the democratic opposition in Moscow. How you could recommend to deal with such a guy who look like look in the eyes of international community slowly like a terrorist? So how you will recommend to deal with Mr. Kadyrov and his well he don't receive any answer from official government, and how international community finally should start to express ourselves here about Mr. Kadyrov threats against the leaders and of opposition, and not only leaders, against people who have other opinion in Moscow.
First of all, we should understand that Mr. Kadyrov is appointed leader of one of the out of 85 regions in Russia. Right. But his public and political statements he allowed himself to undertake, of course, should be subject for federal government consideration. Mr. Putin appointed Mr. Kadyrov.
Right.
And if Mr. Kadyrov, one of those 85 governors or whatever, leaders of the region, behave contrary to Russian constitution, appropriate measures should be undertaken. If it's not, direct responsibility of Mr. Putin for that, what's happening in Russia in these days.
Thank you. So, Vladimir, Mr. Kara-Murza, you just were poisoned for your activities in Moscow. I'm sorry, I'm making this summary of course, the investigation is just pending. But first of all, we would like to welcome you here. You're not first time, but we welcome you here. You're alive. It's a miracle. So more like 90% of people who are related to the medical world and were related to you were not so sure that you will survive. So it's a miracle. You are staying with us, a Democrat, committed Democrat, who were poisoned just a few months ago in Moscow. What you can say to democratic opinion in the world?
Well, thank you, Mr. Zingris, for welcoming all of us here. And I'm very happy to be here for many reasons. But one of those is that just a few months ago, medical experts gave me 5% chance to live. So I'm very happy to be here and to be with you. And I think, frankly, we don't have the right to stand aside, to run away, to hide. We have to carry on what we're doing, because I think what we're doing is right. Because I think that under the current regime, our country has no prospects. It's being led into a dead end, politically, economically, in terms of relations with the outside world. So I think it's our duty, and I think to a great extent, it's our moral duty to the memory of our friend Boris Nemtsov to continue this fight. And you know, it's our job in Russia to bring democratic changes to our country. It's no one else's. It's not for the outside world to do. And I think that would be the best possible tribute and the best possible memorial to Boris when our country is finally free, and when we have a system that is based on the rule of law, on political freedoms, and on respect for international norms. But on the other hand, I would like to second what Prime Minister Kasyanov and Zhanna said, and this is to express hope that our friends and colleagues here in the Council of Europe express their solidarity and use the instruments of oversight that they have, that you have, in order to take control, for example, of the investigation of this heinous crime. Because we do not believe that the official investigation into Boris's murder in Russia today is conducted in good faith. We do not believe that it's being conducted free from political constraints. Yes. Just last week, Mr. Bastrykin, who is the head of the investigative committee, announced that this crime has been solved. And apparently Russian investigators have concluded that the assassination of the leader of the Russian opposition, 200 meters from the Kremlin wall, in what is probably the most secure perimeter, not just in Moscow, but in the whole of Europe, was masterminded by a driver. You know, I think it's really time for the Parliamentary Assembly of the Council of Europe to use the mechanisms you have, including of launching a special report and appointing a rapporteur on this issue, to make sure that they're not allowed to swipe this investigation under the carpet, and that they do not allow the memory of Boris to be forgotten like they want to be. And we really hope that this session of the Parliamentary Assembly that's begun this week will have some results in this direction.
Thank you. Vladimir, you're coming back to Moscow to continue your fight.
I'm just here for 2 days. We came yesterday with actually Boris's and Zhanna's lawyers, Vadim Prokhorov and Olga Mikhailova, and we're going back on Wednesday, yes, after the session.
So thank you for coming. Thank you for coming to this site event and to have discussion with members of parliament from 46 countries. I would like to wish you that the next elections, and you will try to take part, will be free and fair. Well, last elections was not free and fair in Russia, and we hope finally that after 12 years, when last Democrat disappeared from a Russian delegation here in Parliamentary Assembly, and that was the man under name Sergei Kovalyov, you will become in the future members of our Parliamentary Assembly community, and you will have a choice to have your floor here during every session in the committees. And Russia, having such great European legacy in culture and in political history, should have a place here. I'm so glad that you're presenting peaceful Russia, and democracy in Russia means for us peaceful Russia at all, and Russian coexistence with Europe and Russia-European choice. So thank you so much.
I agree. Current Russian delegation should be definitely replaced.
Thank you so much
for your support.
So thank you for and be sure you have behind the doors of this room you have huge support and understanding in not only Council of Europe but in all democratic world. Be sure that naked political power cannot replace democracy and freedom. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.